So my name's Aidan Bugarski. I am a podcaster, MMA journalist, and analyst, and future commentator. I work in local regional scenes in California, former lights out commentator and interviewer, now progressing my way to the UFC and the bigger promotions and chasing the big dream. But I also do podcasts based on mixed martial arts, life stuff, advice, and just an overall general podcast. There's no real niche specific, but obviously my personal target is that MMA community. It's called the Essential Aidan Bugarski, and it is generally for everybody that wants life advice. I am just a general natural guy like everybody else. I'm nothing special. So it's a podcast to show people that if you actually just get in there and do it and you're not afraid to be camera shy, you could achieve anything. And that's kind of my goal with podcasting and who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to inspire people in ways that if you feel, for example, when I got into podcasting, I looked at the pinnacle, Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan's, the Bobby Lee's, the big names in comedy podcasting. And it's like, how could I ever be something like that when I myself am not a comic? I don't have any comedy experience. But if you take it into your own hands and you take what you're good at and you dissect it into the show and you just are yourself on camera, people grow to that. For marketing purposes, actually, that is the exact reason. When I was coming up with ideas for my podcast, I thought of an idea called Life Too Short. So many different ideas with my name. I just wanted my name to be included in a way because for search results, because you're like, oh, have you heard Aidan Bugarski's podcast? You're like, oh, what's it called? And I've had people who, even myself, when I'm like, oh, this person has a podcast and I got to go find it, but I don't know the name to it. I just have their name attached. So it just makes it easier when it comes up for searches. Now, the reason why I call it the Essential Aidan Bugarski is because it is after my favorite band's album. So the Foo Fighters is going to be my favorite band of all time. Big inspirations to me. And their album called The Essential Foo Fighters, I kind of did a spin off of that. So instead of the Essential Foo Fighters, the Essential Aidan Bugarski, which is why the show is the way it is. Well, the approach that I took to leveraging it into other things, not just my podcasting shows, because that's what I saw. I saw every podcast clip was just based off of one target audience. And I would go through these pages and I was looking for ideas when coming up with stuff. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to reach the people that I want if I'm just pushing one piece of content out there. And I know all the big creators and everybody I've ever personally met, when I ask them for advice, they say the same thing. Post the same stuff, get known for one thing, get really good at it, and never stop posting about it. And to me, I don't want to be stuck down to one form of content, whether it's comedy or life advice or inspirational stuff, life experiences, or even MMA, the stuff I have the biggest passion for. So the approach I took was I want it to be relatable to everybody because on a day-to-day basis, I connect with so many people from all different realms and all different characteristics. And I feel like that's what I was incentivized to do when starting the show. So my approach of taking leverage of I use it for my MMA account, but then I also use it for my personal branding. Then I use it for my clothing sponsor branding and all different realms and avenues just to expand my horizon because I don't like limiting myself to one general audience, which honestly at first was really hard because when you're doing a podcast, you're trying to catch an audience. And that's what I was like, okay, well, this video has 2,000 views and it's MMA content, but then this motivational clip barely has any views. So it was cycling back and forth between those two and finding the grand scheme of how to make content in the right way so it resonates with people. And I kind of found my calling with it. At the start, yes. Even for me right now, it's my biggest asset for the podcast. The long form content isn't where I think it should be at. Obviously, ideally, when you're a big creator, long form content is your moneymaker. But when you're early on into a podcast, you can't look at the long-term views or the big-term shows. You got to look at those short clips. You got to get your name out there and even have clipping pages where people are clipping your content and resharing it and pushing it on X or Instagram or TikTok and YouTube Shorts because those are all different avenues that gain different types of audiences. Like one clip I did a podcast with Sean Merriman and we talked about Donald J. Trump. It was a very controversial topic of conversation. But those clips went so viral. I was seeing it on mainstream news outlets on Twitter. I was just scrolling through my Twitter. I had no clue. And I saw Sean. I was like, oh, and I was like, wait, that's my studio. And I watched. I'm like, dude, they took my whole clip, they rebutted it, and then they spit it out. And to me, I'm like, that's what I'm trying to do with this. So I really understood that it's those clips that make everything. Because me, I'm not somebody big, famous, special. So why do they need to watch my show? I need to have something highlighted and viral to happen in order to grab attention to get to my show. Because for me, people are watching who I'm interviewing. They're not watching me for me. I'm not that type of person yet. I'm not like Joe Rogan where he can go on and have an absolute nobody, but you'll go and watch it because you're watching Joe Rogan. So Aidan Bugarski isn't a household name yet, but once it is, then my guests will change and the lining and topics of conversation will change. But for now, I want to be entertaining and I want to show a side to me that people don't get to see. Yeah, I tried using that at first, and I was like, "Dang, that cuts too far into the budget." And clipping to me was it's still super important. Like once I can get the momentum organically enough to where I'm like, okay, I could really invest into this, and I'm bringing in a little bit of money. I'm definitely going to invest 100% of what I have into clipping because it's made some of the biggest creators in the space, whether you're in the streaming world or you're in the YouTube world or IRL or even podcasting. It's the mainstream of what's going on in your day to day basis. Like one person that I'm seeing that's coming up even more often is Rampage Jackson. I've known of Rampage forever, back to the Pride days, to UFC, to him taking a break, to his energy drink company sponsoring my show. F3 was a sponsor for the first 4 episodes before I parted ways, but it's like he's always been a figure in my life. But to now where I have my everyday friends talking about Rampage, oh, did you see what happened with his son? Or did you see what he said? It's super funny. He's entertaining. I didn't know he was such a funny guy. That's what you get when you clip. And now he's bigger than ever. And before, obviously, he has a household name with what he did in the sport. But now it's like, okay, holy shit. Now you're grabbing a new audience. You're getting people who didn't know Rampage before that now know Rampage. Yeah, it's weird. That even happens to me. Like, just to spin back on that Donald Trump thing, that clip flatlined. It had like 200 views. Election came around 3 months later. The clip blew up. It's like, how did it re-blow up? This is a 3-month old clip. I have about 50 new clips that have been up since that date, but yet this one's so far back in my profile. The algorithm just blessed that one up. And then even some of my most recent posts, I've learned on social media, it's not about what's in the clip, it's how you edit it. Because originally I was the one editing it, and editing is everything in social media unless you're a big personality. If you have somebody really big on, you could kind of sneak away with some shitty editing and transfers and subtitles, but it definitely changes your view count for sure. Like that's one thing I noticed. I even invested a little bit. I had 3 different guys who I was trying out. I said, okay, here's the clip, or here's the snippet of the time frames of what I want. All of you clip it, send it back to me. I'm gonna push it out. Whichever one gets the most views, you win. You'll be my editor, and that's kind of how I did things. Yeah, for sure. At first, I thought quantity beat everything, but in the space of podcasting, it doesn't matter how many times you post. It just matters if the clip's good and it's going to get the right ratio. You're going to see it on 1,000 different accounts posting the same thing. It's just the way the clip goes. It's not about what editing frame you put it under. If it's a good clip, it's going to go viral regardless. There's sometimes where that happens, but if you could really put the quality into it and, whether it's the visuals or the effects and it's not too noisy or crowdy, because that's how my clips were. They were very noisy, a little bit blurry. The quality wasn't 100% there. I didn't have it all under control to where now it literally looks like high production stuff. You see a change in the view count. You see and the retention rate is the biggest one. People just watch it more just because of the quality. That's one big thing that I noticed too. Well, yeah, like even now, if you're like one of the biggest studios, obviously you can push out both. If you're like the Your Mom's House podcast or even Rogan, he does a 4 hour long episode, but he has thousands of clippers who are putting together quality, man. So it's like once you build a frame of quality and you get 3 to 5 different people posting that, that turns to 50 to 100. And now you have both. Because then when you're pushing out quantity, you're just pushing shit out just to get it out there at the right times, hoping it goes viral. And it never does. Maybe one does because it's just the right clip. And if you readjust and re-edit it, it works. I had to dig back into some of my old clips and old episodes, re-edit them and repost them, and they did significantly better. So I knew it wasn't the clip, it was just the way I was editing it and pushing it. And that definitely changed my way on, okay, maybe I don't need to post every single day. Conducting interviews. That was definitely to me the hardest part in being on camera. I never personally struggled with like being camera shy, but I struggled with how I would look personally for me. I didn't care publishing the content, but to me, subconsciously, it would affect how I would act on camera. I would think, okay, well, I wonder how I look in this type of situation, and I would try to see it from the camera lens. So it would affect my full grasp of grabbing an interview and getting somebody's full attention. So understanding the right way to interview somebody, how to talk to somebody, how to conduct an interview, and grab those sweet spots and moments and highlight it. Because you're kind of a journalist, but that's the aspect I didn't want to take to it. My first couple episodes, I had questions written down. I already did my research. I wanted to get it done. I already had them fully grasped out of how I wanted it to go A to B. And those, in my opinion, were the episodes that I felt shaky on because I had it so premeditated. But when I went to just go in, I didn't even think about it. I just showed up and shot it. It turned out to be one of the best because I had nothing else but myself on camera in a room talking to somebody. And that's where I shine the most, which made me think, okay, maybe I am meant for this podcasting thing in interviews. Yeah, it's the same conversations I have in the training room. Once we're done training, I'm friends with a lot of the people, and I consider them a lot of close friends and even brothers at times. So the environment in a gym is you don't just go in and trade. It's not like you're going to LA Fitness where you're going in for yourself, you're pushing weight, and you're going home. You hang out with these guys after. You get food with them. Some of them become some of your really closest friends. And that's the conversations that I bring into the podcast studio. It's a genuine approach, a more love and friendly approach rather than, hey, I'm just an interviewer interviewing you. We're just two bros on camera who are sharing something about what you do because I ideally think it's special. Whether like even one guest I had, Gabe Green, he's a professional UFC fighter. But the approach I took to him is just like having a friend on. Obviously he's done something in life that's super spectacular and notable, and many people love him for it. But to me, I'm seeing Gabe. And in the training room, it's the same thing. I'm not looking at these high level fighters or pro state champions or all American wrestlers as, wow, you're this glorified person. No, I'm looking at you as Kyle, Rick, Geo. Like, I'm looking at you for who you are. And that's what I dissected in the podcast versus bringing somebody on and I'm like glorifying them because of who they are in the space and what they could bring to the show. So that's one thing I definitely learned. Honestly, I'm just a very creative person. I don't do too much digging into it and like pre-planning. I kind of just go into it, and even for me, I have a natural instinct for comedy. I'm a very funny person. I have this quote where I seek life through funny. Every single moment that I can make something funny, I do, or joke about a moment. So it's kind of just having that like comedic instinct in a way where in my head I see it as if I was in a comedy movie where it's like that would be a funny skit. So that's the kind of lens that I look at it through. I don't take it so serious and, oh, this got to be conducted a certain way and we got to act right on camera. No, just have fun. We're fucking around and we're making jokes and just trying to create a good environment for people to listen. Because when you're listening to a show, that's the biggest attention grab is you want to feel like you're in the room with who you're listening to. You don't want to just be listening to a show because there's so many podcast clips I come up and I'm like, I don't feel attached to the conversation. But then when you find somebody who's good at it, you're like, holy shit, man. I feel like I'm literally watching these two speak in a room and I'm just sitting here quietly. That's the podcast experience. Yeah, 100%. I mean, then again, it also matters on your audience control and target audience. But for me, people are getting smart. People sense shit. Like my 60-year-old grandma sees stuff on Instagram now. And she goes, oh, this is a fake video. They're fake pranking. She's 60 and she knows. You can see right through it. It's not like the old days where, that was the thing, scripting and faking and having this whole Hollywood idea of, okay, we got to direct this clip and make this come out a certain way. Otherwise, we're going to redo it. it just doesn't sit right with people anymore. It's not organic. And now that AI is here and how futuristic that is, and that's implementing, it's really changing people's idea of understanding. Don't believe it at first until you see it on multiple articles. Like, even when I see news, I'm like, oh, this person died. Let me double check. Because now it's crazy. I have to actually double check if somebody passed away. It's kind of messed up. The news used to be a really reliable source, but now I would say we even got some fake media going around. There was some things that I believed that I didn't even know weren't true until I found out. I'm like, oh shit, I look like an idiot now. It's because you believe everything on your phone. So yeah, definitely audience seek right through that. Personally, for me, I will only listen to a podcast if it's a genuine person. There's a lot of good interviewers out there, like Shannon Sharp. I really do like some of his interviews that he does. But one guest that goes on every podcast that I will never not listen to is Cat Williams. Anytime that guy goes on a podcast, he has some shit to say, and it's so organic and it's so natural, and it like resides with people from all different realms, whether you're politically here or you believe in a certain thing. It's a general area for everybody where we can all agree and come together as people and say, I agree with the shit he's saying. And that's what you look for in a show. You look for people that you resonate with and you want to feel like you're friends with these people. Like me, my biggest inspiration, Joe Rogan, I know everything about this guy. He doesn't even know who I am. So that's kind of the what you get when you gain an audience and you're bringing people into your show. You want to make these people feel like they're your friend. How easy it was. At first, I was like, dude, I'm going to go into this shit. It's just going to be easy. It's just in talking to somebody. I talk to people all day, every day for a living. So what's the difference? And man, it's a lot harder than you think. Even me, like, I acted when I was younger. So even having that on camera presence, it's not the same, man. When you're in a room and it's quiet, it's not a normal conversation. Even like right now, this is more normal than when I'm in that podcast room because it's so quiet. You have a mic in front of you. There's three bright lights, and then you have two camera lenses facing towards you. So it creates a different experience where you don't want to look like an idiot on camera. So your senses are up, your guard is up, and you're like under the shield. But once you can learn to crack down and learn that it's okay to be an idiot, everyone fucks up from time to time, and not everybody's the smartest man in the room, then you'll be okay, and it changes a lot. How much I love it, and how down to earth I am for it. Podcasting is one of those things where I would do it every day, even if my clips get 0 views. It's something that I genuinely like doing and I enjoy, and I would do it in my spare time, regardless of the view count, or regardless of, I would do it as a 60-year-old man. It's just one of those things where I really it sits well with my personality and my figure and who I am as a person and what I stand for. And it's just something that I'm very strongly about. Same with like my career in jujitsu and training MMA as even like a hobbyist. I train with high level guys. It doesn't mean I'm a professional fighter. I just do it as a hobbyist because it's my genuine passion. I enjoy do it. And regardless whether I'm in the UFC or not, I would do it every single day. I tried it and I fully banned it. I've had a bunch of podcasts hit me up and they were like, "Hey, let's do an episode." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." And it was all virtual. And to me, it's not the same experience. It's not the same type of interview. It's going to be conducted very differently. And your answers change. It's weird. When you're in the room with the person, it creates a more vulnerable space and more organic feel. And the interviews just come out better. They just do. I don't know what it is. Even if you're scripted all the way through, it just, when you're standing in front of somebody, there's a comfortability with them that you get and you overcome. And there's challenges that you didn't think about doing a podcast and how much harder than it was expected to be. So you end up finding yourself in like, okay, hold on, let me lock in. I got to do this. But when you're in the comfort of your home, you don't care. You're just going to answer how you do and kind of be like a robot in a sense. But when you're there on camera, you're like, I got to get serious. This is in person. This is face to face. It's just like having a job interview with your boss. You're not going to have the same experience when you call them on the phone. When your boss calls you, you're like, "Oh yeah, what's up, man? I'm good." Yeah, you're more spacious because you're in the comfort. They're not right there in front of you. So once you get that closure, it just pushes a different side of you. And in my opinion, it makes a better experience for interviews. Being witty, That's one thing I've learned. I'm not like a super quick, fast person, but with podcasting, you gotta really multitask because you're having a full on conversation. But when you don't have any notes or something, you still got to make it entertaining. So you got to throw in questions. So you're dissecting what they're saying. But then you also have to come up with your own answer or even rebuttal with a question or a curveball or a change of topic. So you're guiding a conversation with somebody versus you're just going back and forth and seeing where that goes. Because when you go to dinner with your friends and you're eating and you're talking, you're not thinking about guiding the conversation. There's going to be quiet moments. And that's another thing I learned about podcasting is it's okay to have moments of silence. At first, I was like, dude, this is weird. We're sitting here for like 3 seconds not saying anything. But once you learn, that's part of the show and it's organic. It sits better with you. Be more consistent. Obviously, with life expectancies and circumstances, you can't always be consistent because there's going to be other stuff you have to take care of. But not going as hard as I did up front because I was shooting episodes what it felt like every week. And then when I was like, wait, it's a lot harder than I thought, pushing out more content, getting clips. I'm like, I need a team if I'm going to really push out content like this. So it's kind of taking it at your own pace and backpedaling and realizing, there's no rush. It's always going to be there. But when you do have a viral conversation about something that's concurrent, that's the stuff that's got to go out first. So when I was making my clips, I would have an hour-long episode, but I would dissect the parts of the conversation that is something about something now and it's trending, whether it's something that happened politically, something that happened in the MMA community, somebody's a new champion, or whatever had happened, and it's hot at that moment on social media. That's what you want to target first, and then you could get the other clips out. I stay really active. I respond to all messages. I don't let anybody go unnoticed. Obviously, there's times where I just don't see it. But to me, it's being super active with them, whether it's a good comment or bad comment. One of my favorite things to do is when I get hate comments is to fuck with them. It's rage baiting. It's so funny to me. It's like actually the best thing ever, especially on that Donald Trump video. It got like a 500,000 views on TikTok. The comments are just filled with hate. And I was just rage baiting in the comments. And, it's stuff like that that entertains me and it entertains the audience. It shows like, oh, this guy's like not an asshole. Even if you put something bad and I reply with something funny, you're like, okay, he's a cool guy. He's not as bad as I thought. So it's really just being engaging on all platforms, whether it's your Instagram stories, your replies, your reply to comments. That's one thing I think I'll forever do is replying to comments. It's a big one. A lot of people just don't look at their comment section and just let it go because but it's really a tool that you can use to grasp a new audience and be more personable with people and even people that I meet in person. When I go to these MMA events, obviously I have a familiar face in the scene. I'm not no famous person, but I definitely have a recognizable face in the space. They'll know what I do. So when I get these people like, hey, you look super familiar with what you do, or I've seen your podcast clips, I saw your show with Merriman or the Up Next guys or our fighters or whatever, I really take the time to engage with them because that's the chance to bring in a new viewer. Just because I'm meeting them in person doesn't mean they're here to meet me. No, I'm here to meet you now. Now I got to pull you in and reel you in as a guest. But you know what? It was actually an in-person counter. Like to me, I just recently started meeting people in person at these MMA events, but it was at an old Lights Out show. I remember this. Some of my buddies from my gym came out to watch, and I was obviously sitting ringside doing my thing, and they were proud of me, so they wanted to take photos of me. So they took photos, and they're all happy and stuff. And I was taking photos with at least 5, 10 different people, selfies, full camera photos. So from a stranger's point of view, you see me in a suit, dressed up really nice. I got VIP access to the show. They think I'm famous. This guy comes up, asks for a photo. He's like, "What's up, champ?" He goes, "I love your fights, this and that." And to me, I'm like, okay, he doesn't know who I am. So I'm like, yeah, let's take a photo. Let's do it. Let's have a good time. The guy wouldn't leave me alone all night. Hey, could you shout out my cousin? Hey, I'm going to take a video for my brother at different times all the way until I left. I didn't mind it. I thought it was funny, but I felt bad for the guy because I'm like, dude, you don't know who I am and you're obsessing over me because the celebrity effect happened where now I got random people taking photos with me who are they're like, hey, can I have a photo? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I got a guy saying, hey, good luck in your next fight. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what I do. But then I had one guy who goes, "Oh, I like your interviews." Okay, thank you so much. It feels good, you know. But that poor guy, he was just following me all night, asking, "Hey, can I have a photo? Could you shout out my daughter? Hey, send this to my cousin. He's a big fan. This and that." It was pretty funny. Theo Vaughn, 100%. His guest list is so entertaining. The people he has on his show, if I had access to that for a week, I think I could conduct some of the funniest interviews known to man. Not discrediting Theo because he does an amazing job, but I think if I had that guest list, I could make a good run for it. You know what? It's pretty straightforward and it's going to be easy, but obviously my biggest inspiration, Rogan, and not the sense because he's the biggest podcaster, but because he's really helped me out in my life. I have a very soft spot for him in my heart because I've been through so much stuff, and his show has really helped me through those hard times. Whether it was growing up, and because I listened to him since I was in middle school, so this is like pre when he was still living in LA. He still had his stuff, and I believe it was Huntington or something. He had a studio closer to the beach. It was kind of like having a father figure growing up and learning about comedy because I was a latchkey kid. I have a lot of similarities with him from a young age. I was out and about doing my own thing. I had a My mom was a single mom, raising me in an apartment in LA while she worked all day to pay the bills from morning to night. I had to take myself to school. I had to come home. I had to find ways to entertain myself. So, growing up and going through life experiences that seemed very hardcore for my age, and whether it was an emotional time, a frustrating time, or something that I didn't understand the answer to, I gained that from his show. And so to me, having him on wouldn't just be because he's the most famous guy in the world or because we both do MMA, but because I know who he is as a person just based off of the thousands of hours that I've listened to him. So there's a real soft spot in my heart for the guy. So hopefully when I do get the chance to meet him soon, I'm able to elaborate on that and hopefully have that personal connection. Biggest advice I would give to people who want to get into podcasting is know if you're made for it and understand your goal. If and your reasonings. If you're doing it to get famous or be known in the world, you're doing it for the wrong reason and you're in the wrong business. You're better off going and acting and finding that because podcasting is something that it's super high risk with low rewards, but if you do get the golden end of the shovel, you really are looking at a life of peace, but then you have to learn how to carry that, manage that. I've seen podcasts blow up and fall within the first year of them being viral because they don't know how to carry themselves. Because once you get a little bit of juice, you forget who you're sipping water with. And to me, no money, no view count, no viewership could ever change the way I conduct my interviews, and no sponsorship or anybody could ever get in my ears about who I'm interviewing or what I'm doing. I do it for the love of the game because I have a passion and I genuinely want my content to resonate with people who are out there just like me. Because, like I was saying earlier, I'm just your average guy. I'm nothing special. I don't have no college degree in anything. I don't specialize in anything. I'm not a pro athlete. I don't do anything special, but I'm correlating with these people because I'm usually your average funny guy. I've been through crazy life experiences and I've seen things that a lot of people have themselves too, but don't put it out there. So maybe it resonates with people like, I have stories like that too that are interesting and topics of conversation. Maybe I can make a life for myself doing what I love. And to me, sitting in a room and talking to somebody and getting to know them and even bringing out an emotional part to them is really big to me. Still very early in my podcast career, but I feel like years down the road, as I become more consistent and the growth opportunities are there, and even my outside content opportunities. I don't just do podcasting, I do social media skits, I do MMA interviews. I'm kind of everywhere doing it all at once. Like, for example, this weekend, I'm taking a camping trip to Utah for 3 days. We're going to go to Zion National Park. I'm going to be completely off the internet for 3 days, but I'm going to be recording some funny ass videos while I'm out there. So it's just stuff like that, being entertaining in the world. And for anybody who's out there who wants to get into podcasting or interviewing or any type of social media, I say just do it, give it a shot. You don't have to be worried about having all the right things. That's one thing I struggled with early on in my career is like feeling everything needs to be perfect in order for me to do it when indeed it doesn't. If you just show up and do it, it'll turn out way better than you expected. And it's a lot more achieving, knowing that you did something under good pressure, not the best circumstances, but you made it work. And because if you're in there and you're going and you're trying to execute perfection every time and you're waiting for the stars to align in the sky, you're going to sit there and do that for the rest of your life. So you kind of got to sit there, suck it all up, and just go in and do it and have fun with it. That's my biggest thing is if you're not having fun with it, don't do it. It's not worth the time because you have to be all in and all in for the right reasons. Otherwise, you're just going to eat shit 10 times out of 10 times and it's not going to sit with people.